What's up, losers? We're back again with another GOON review. I actually have a lot to talk about this game because I had to play this game like 6, 7 times to really understand what is going on here. And even after like GOON maxing the shit out of this game, I still don't really understand it. This game is called Superscout and it's developed by Mountain and Sea Studio, who have a track record of rather mid-dating FMVs. I mentioned this game in my last GOON review and how it infuriates me because honestly, the story seems pretty simple, right? You kind of work as a magical Harry Potter Star Scout agent man that sacrifices like romance so you can aura farm the girls into superstardom, but it's apparently a little more complex than that. How your Harry Potter voodoo Super Scout power works is that there is an activation where you do something to activate the girl's star power, and then there's a specific thing you sacrifice from getting with the girl in order to grow their star power. Now from the get-go, this shit is already a turn-off. Like, how do you classify the game as a dating sim when you're like not even dating them? Like with So Young, you're supposed to break up with her and keep a distance from her in order to help her achieve greater star power, but with Yeshu, you're supposed to get her to marry you. It doesn't feel like you've got much choice here, and it does feel like it's predetermined as to who you're gonna eventually choose. I think it's not wrong to say this game tries to do too much, along with having to interact with the girls, trying to figure out what you're doing and trying to figure out what's going on. You have to deal with the deity that curses you with these powers, but we'll get to that later. I have another bone to pick. Duo Duo. This lady yaps non-stop. I'm pretty sure it makes sense in Mandarin, but Lord have mercy, she's talking some Confucius ass shit that as an English speaker would smooth brain the out of you. She was actually bearable from the start. I thought she was just a dummy gamer girl that's supposed to be cute and all, but she does not stop yapping about philosophical bullshit like how the sun and stars align or whatever. I guess I shouldn't have expected anything different from a game such as this. I think Dodo as a character is just there for, a bit of eye candy for those of you who like furries and shit. Now to talk about the deity that gave you the ability in the first place, Subi. I don't get its motive, to be honest. There's some confusing plot behind your relationship with Subi, yourself, and 3 other girls, that being Zoyang, Jia or Linjia, and Xiaolan. You get these flashbacks that don't really make any sense. They don't tell you when it happens or where it happens. It's just some lore drop that shows Jia and Xiaolan bickering about saving your life. Talking about Jia and Xiaolan, the game doesn't really show you much detail about the relationship between you and Jia. All you get are glimpses of dialogue that explain to you that Jia and yourself were childhood friends. Meanwhile, Xiaolan seems to show up out of nowhere at the beginning of the game as your date and doesn't come back until later in the game. I gotta say, it's all a bit lackluster as well. There's underdeveloped relationships between characters, an overly complicated dating system, if you could even call it that, and a lack of clear instructions as to how you should proceed in the game. Speaking of lackluster, the dating system gets even more complicated towards the second or third last chapter when Subi comes back to tell you there's a system update for your Star Scout ability, so you get the Heart Scout ability in exchange, where you can see the desires of the girls. Like, bruh, what is happening? Like, why the sudden switch up? It's not like the Heart Scout system works any better either. Subi literally explains that the Heart Scout only shows their hidden desires and may or may not be actual memories from their past. So it could just basically be a fantasy. So what's the point of all this scouting bullshit? Also, the amount of extra nonsense in this game goes crazy. Like with Yeshu, you get a bit more background from the kid, Tang Tang's aunt, about the backstory here, and at some point I'm thinking, wait, you can raise up the aunt as well? Cause like they clearly give you like an option to choose how you answer and like gain or lose favor from her. So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I guess she's one of the Huz. But then after that she just doesn't show up again. And it's like, my brother, who are the Huz here? Like you got Zhou Yang, Yeshu, Dodo, Xiaolan, Tang Tang's aunt, Xiaolan's friend Qing Feng. I haven't even mentioned Lin Qianer, who is Zhou Yang's friend and a former idol. I think other than the An Qianer here has to be the second most sideline character. She gets briefly mentioned at the start, but you don't meet her until like a couple chapters later in the game. Then she disappears again for like forever, and then briefly shows up here and there a couple times. This game feels like it doesn't know what it wants to be, and it says a lot when you have to play it like multiple times to understand a fraction of what's going on. I've complained before in other GOON reviews that there's probably one too many baddies, but this game ignores all that and decides to Hazmax all the way with a total of 8 girls as your romantic, and I say romantic really loosely here, options to pursue. Honestly, the number of romantic options isn't the problem. The real problem is that when you have so many characters and such a complex story like Superscout, you tend to end up with really shallow characters that you just can't get invested in. And I think it's like easy to spot who were the characters that got left out. Notable characters like Zhou Yang and Yeshu, who have an established career and would be recognizable to most players, would have taken up a lot of the screen time, and then you have the filler characters like Duo Duo, who sort of just exist as, like I mentioned, an eye candy to furries and like creepy mofos who like to infantilize women. And not to mention, when you have that many characters, it means you gotta create more branches in the story, which the game just doesn't. So a lot of choices doesn't really make a difference. It just kinda leads to a slightly different reaction from the characters rather than any different outcome or whatever. But you know what? Despite all the negatives I just pointed out, I think this would have made a really good C-drama. I mean, the plot is interesting, the characters have a lot of potential, and I just don't think it translates well for a game. It's just exhausting to play through, and every interaction means jack shit because there's so little differences in the outcome. I've been rambling so much I haven't even gotten to the endings. I talked about how there's so little differences to the outcomes, right? This is the perfect example. So the final chapter presents 5 separate endings. But spoiler alert, they're not any different from one another. I'll admit, I only have 3 of the 5 endings unlocked, but all 3 that I have unlocked ends with you and the girl sitting around playing games and proclaiming you're starting an artist agency or whatever. That's essentially it. Apart from slight differences in the dialogue of each ending, all 3 ended the same way. Like that. After unlocking 3 endings, I was just tired of going back and forth between chapters trying to unlock more. On God, I just couldn't slosh through any more of it. I'd rather watch Indonesia boat racing kids sped up for 3 hours on loop than play another second of this cursed game. And you can thank my ass I did it for you guys by liking and subscribing to this video. One last thing before I cap off with where this game ranks on the tier list, I just want to reveal to you all that after a grueling 9 chapters of gameplay, the game finally reveals to you that all this is just a prequel. Yep, you heard me right. Entire 9 chapter series of trying to figure out what the f you're actually doing turns out to be a prequel. I don't know who will buy the sequel to this slop after the shit show that they just pulled off here, but yeah, it ain't gonna be me, that's for sure. I think one review on the Steam page sums it up pretty well. I can't find it anymore, but it says something like, the game is probably an ad push for the actresses, and honestly, I don't disagree. Most of these actresses have gone on to other projects, most notably Wang Xiayin, the actress who plays Zhou Yang. I've covered her pretty well in my last GOON review for My Destiny Girls, so check that out if you're interested to get to know a little more about the actress. I probably ramble on for long enough, and after all that, I still believe that Superscout goes into the A tier. Psych! I'm playing. It's a straight up D tier game, bruh. Like, I mean, do you really believe it's gonna be anywhere above even a C? It's so goddamn awful, man. Nonetheless, I still have another game by the same developers to pick on in the next GOON review, so you guys can stay tuned for that one. Till then, happy gooning my little degenerates.